Hello, everyone, and welcome to AP US History for Winners with your teacher, Mr. Johnson. Last time we talked about the Cold War and the Red Scare, and today we are talking about the economy after 1945 and the culture after 1945. So, this is the economy and culture right after World War II and into the early 50s. So, if you are ready, let's begin. Now, the economy after 1945, the one thing I want you to think about is that it's growing. So the economy, again, referring to how much money people are making and then the country as a whole, it is growing. And why is it growing? Well, we're going to have five reasons. Number one, the growth of private businesses, right? America believes in these capitalist ideas of people owning their own businesses and having them prosper. And those private businesses are going to grow in this time period. There's going to be a lot more federal spending. If you think back to the early 1900s or late 1800s, what was the federal government's role in the economy? Well, there wasn't much of one, right? Laissez-faire. But in the 1930s, the New Deal, FDR, World War II, the federal government starts spending a lot more money, and that's going to continue during this time period. And when the federal government's going to spend more money, it's going to create more economic opportunities. Third, the baby boomers. We're going to see a huge increase in the population during this time period. After World War II, we see a large number of babies being born. With more babies being born, that's going to have the effect of an increase in the economy because there's going to be more services created for those children. And then as those children get older, more education opportunities and then more job opportunities are going to be created. Technology is going to cause this economic growth, either new technologies, right, that are going to be invented that people are going to want and factories are going to create, or cheaper technologies, technologies that are now made cheaper. So we think about things like radios and cars already invented, but they're becoming more widespread, but also ideas like televisions and refrigeration are now becoming commonplace in the American home. And last is more higher education opportunities. So more and more people are finding ways to get into college, which is going to give them higher skilled jobs and again, further increase the economy. What is the impact of all this economic growth? Well, the first one is that the middle class is going to move to the suburbs. Now, a suburb is a region not in the city, but outside of the city. And this is a change. Where are most people living prior to this? Well, let's think again, early 1900s. Where are people moving to? The cities, urbanization, right? But now, because of Dwight Eisenhower, President Dwight Eisenhower creates something called the Interstate Highway System, where if you think in Connecticut, like 84 and 91, these are interstate highways. You can travel on those. You can travel on 91, 95, right? You can get all across the country. So this highway system is also going to make it so that people in the middle class do not necessarily need to live in the place that they work, right? They don't need to live in the city. They can move to a place like, let's say, Glastonbury, and then take their car and commute to Hartford every day. Okay. And this is going to be a popular thing that's going to happen in this time period. The last impact is the influence of this region called the Sun Belt region. And I want you to star the Sun Belt, make sure you understand this term, okay? Sun Belt is pictured here in the map on the left. It is the yellow region. It is basically the southern United States, but I want you to especially be thinking about like Southern California, Arizona, and Florida as the main areas in the Sun Belt. And as more people begin to move to these areas, it's going to increase their influence. So when more people move there, they're going to get more influence in politics through ideas like the House of Representatives, right? More representatives because they're moving there. And then they're also going to have more economic opportunities because so many people, again, are moving there. So it's going to create jobs and you're going to create growth. And we're going to talk about how these Sunbelt region more in other lessons and how they have this political influence. So it's just an important region to know and understand. All right. So now let's talk about the culture during the same time period after 1945, early 50s. And this first sentence I want you to star, I really want you to understand. The culture is defined as the rise of a homogeneous mass culture that is obsessed with conformity. Now, I know there's a lot of big words in that sentence. So what does that really mean? We're going to see a culture where people are encouraged to act the same, and they're encouraged to do that through mass media, through things like television and radio, and this is what they're encouraged to do and to look like. Okay, so people are acting the same, looking the same, they're consuming the same media, they're living in similar kind of houses, that they all want to buy the same kind of cars. Homogeneous conformity, right? That's the idea. Now, your best example of this is the suburbs. And Levittown is a good example, and you should probably understand. It's a good example to know of, to memorize. So Levittown, New York, you can see pictured here on the left. It is a suburb, and as you can see, look at all those houses; they look very similar. So becomes an idea and a concept to move to the suburbs, get a house, try to have a family, commute to the city. Everyone's kind of wanting the same idea. Okay. Now, there is really important to know, though, that these suburbs are often segregated. So it is not, we're not in the time period where segregation is over. Okay. We haven't had the civil rights movement yet. So a lot of these suburbs are white only. So a lot of white people are moving away from cities into these suburbs, and they are living in areas that don't have people of color. Okay. And so that's just an important thing to understand. And we'll see the effects of that as we get into the civil rights movement later in this unit. So what is this mass culture obsessed with conformity? What is it caused by? Well, it's caused by all those economic and social changes. The increase in the economy, right, enables people to be moving to the suburbs and commuting to work and all those kind of things. It's also caused by the anxiety over the Cold War, right? If America just got out of World War II, doesn't really have a chance to take a breath. We're already in this rivalry and the standoff, and not a direct war with the Soviet Union, but this standoff with the Soviet Union. And when a culture is anxious about political and foreign affairs, often people kind of look inward, and they kind of start to act the same as each other to try to stay together, to band together. Okay. And then the last reason this is caused is because of that idea we talked about in the previous slide, the boomer generation, the rise of the birth rate after World War II, with more people being born and these schools really growing, people needing to build more schools. Again, it's going to increase that idea of people acting the same, acting with conformity. Now, not everybody after 1945 is going to want to conform and going to want to be like everybody else. This idea is going to be challenged by rebellious artists, intellectuals, and young people. Okay, and these are people who are usually going to go against what is mainstream in any culture. Okay, so this conformity is going to be challenged by those movements. And let's give you some examples. So the Beat movement and the Beat generation. On the left, so you can see pictures here. So these are a group of writers that are writing books about how they challenge that idea of conformity as a good thing. Okay, an example of a book is called The Affluent Society, written in 1958, and it talks about the income disparity in post-World War II between the upper class, middle class, and the lower classes. Okay, so trying to say that, look, not everything's perfect. America's trying to present this idea that everything is good, but not everything is good. And the last example, and for me, I think the easiest example to think about it is the influence of new types of music like rock and roll music. Elvis Presley and the Beatles become very popular, and they are not, this is not the music that everyone's listening to. This is the music of the young people, right? Of the people who are challenging the ideas of conformity. And this music and this idea behind this music is going to grow into the 60s as well. All right, so that is it for our notes on culture after 1945 and the economy after 1945. But let's go over our big ideas. Make sure you're writing them down. Number one, what were the causes of an improved economy after 1945? So why did that happen? Number two, what were the effects of the improved economy? And number three, describe the culture of the United States in the late 40s and 50s, and make sure you're describing the entire culture. All right, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.